You've probably felt this before. You're going through your day, and there's this nagging sense in the back of your mind that you're forgetting something. You check your calendar, you look at your to-do list, you mentally run through everything you're supposed to remember. But you can't figure out what it is. And the feeling doesn't go away. It just sits there, making you uneasy, even though nothing is actually wrong. This isn't about having a bad memory or being disorganized. It's about the way your brain tracks obligations and information. And the uncomfortable truth is that this feeling isn't always tied to something you've actually forgotten. Sometimes, it's just a byproduct of how much you're trying to keep track of in the first place. Most people assume that if you feel like you're forgetting something, it means you actually are. But that's not always true. The feeling and the reality don't always match. Your brain generates that sense of forgetting as a warning signal. But warning signals can be triggered by things other than actual gaps in memory. When you're managing multiple responsibilities, your brain has to maintain what's called a mental load. It's not just about remembering individual tasks. It's about tracking what's been done, what still needs to be done, what might need to be done, and what could go wrong if something gets missed. That tracking happens in the background, constantly, even when you're not consciously thinking about it. Research into working memory and cognitive load shows that the brain has a limited capacity for holding and managing information at any given time. When that capacity is strained, your brain starts sending signals that something might be slipping. It's trying to alert you. But the alert itself doesn't always correspond to a specific forgotten item. Sometimes it's just a reflection of how much you're carrying. Let's say you're at work and you've handled a dozen small tasks throughout the morning. You've responded to emails, attended a meeting, updated a spreadsheet, confirmed an appointment. You didn't forget anything. Everything got done. But by the afternoon, you have this persistent feeling that you missed something. You go through the list again. Nothing's missing. But the feeling is still there. Or think about someone who's constantly juggling personal and professional obligations. They've set reminders, they've written things down, they've checked off completed tasks. But the sense of forgetting lingers. It's not tied to any one thing. It's tied to the sheer volume of things they're trying to remember and manage simultaneously. This is where the uncomfortable part comes in. The feeling that you're forgetting something can exist even when you haven't forgotten anything at all. It's not a memory failure. It's a signal that your cognitive system is operating near its limit. And when it's near that limit, it generates discomfort as a way of keeping you vigilant. Studies on prospective memory, which is the ability to remember to do something in the future, suggest that people are better at remembering tasks when they're allowed to offload some of the tracking. When everything has to be held mentally, the brain becomes less confident in its own tracking system. And that lack of confidence manifests as the nagging sense that something has been missed. Here's the thing that makes this so exhausting. The feeling doesn't just appear when you've actually forgotten something. It appears when your brain is overwhelmed by how much it's trying to monitor. So you can be doing everything right, checking everything, staying on top of your responsibilities, and still feel like you're dropping something. Because the feeling isn't about what you've done. It's about how much you're holding. There's also the issue of incomplete tasks. Even small things that aren't urgent can contribute to this feeling. An email you need to send eventually, a call you've been meaning to make, a project you haven't started yet. None of these are forgotten. You know they exist. But because they're not completed, your brain keeps them in a state of partial activation. And that activation contributes to the overall sense of mental clutter. Research into the Zeigarnik effect shows that the brain has a tendency to keep unfinished tasks more active in memory than completed ones. It's a useful mechanism for ensuring things get done. But it also means that even when you're not actively thinking about those tasks, they're creating a low-level background hum of incompleteness. And that hum can feel a lot like forgetting. This doesn't mean the feeling is irrational or that you should ignore it. Sometimes it is pointing to something real. but it also means the feeling isn't a reliable indicator on its own. It can be triggered by cognitive overload, by unfinished tasks, by stress, or by the simple fact that you're managing more than your brain was designed to track comfortably. The reason this is so hard to deal with is that you can't just turn the feeling off. Even when you've checked everything and confirmed that nothing is actually forgotten, the unease remains. Because it's not being generated by a specific missing piece of information. It's being generated by the overall state of your cognitive system. People often try to solve this by checking more, making more lists, setting more reminders. And sometimes that helps. But sometimes it just adds to the load. Because now you're not just tracking the tasks themselves. You're also tracking the systems you've created to track the tasks. And that's its own form of cognitive work. This doesn't mean you're doing something wrong or that you need a better system. It just means that the feeling of forgetting isn't always about memory. Sometimes it's about capacity. And when capacity is strained, the brain sends warnings even when nothing specific is wrong. It's trying to protect you from dropping something important. But in doing so, it creates a constant sense of vigilance that's hard to turn off. So if you've ever felt like you're forgetting something but can't figure out what, this is probably why. It's not that your memory is failing. It's that your brain is managing more than it can comfortably hold without generating discomfort. And that discomfort shows up as the persistent, nagging feeling that something's been missed. Even when it hasn't.